In the winter of 1069, the newly crowned King of England set out to destroy a part of his own kingdom, not to conquer it, to empty it. What followed is one of the worst atrocities in English history, and almost no one remembers it. 3 years earlier, William of Normandy had won England at Hastings, but a battlefield victory is not a country. South of the River Humber, Norman castles rose, and Norman lords took the land. The north was another world. Beyond the Humber lay a region barely tied to the English crown, let alone a Norman one, closer in blood and loyalty to Scandinavia than to London. Twice William sent men north. Twice the north refused to stay conquered. In the autumn of 1069, it erupted. A great Danish fleet sailed up the coast. English rebels rose to meet it. Together, they marched on York, the key to the north, and they took it. The Norman garrison, perhaps 3,000 men, was slaughtered almost to the last. For William, this was the third northern revolt in 3 years, and the most dangerous, because now the rebels had foreign allies and a base. He had tried conquest, he had tried garrisons. Now he chose something else. In the depths of winter, William marched north at the head of his army. He bought off the Danish fleet, paying them to sail away. The English rebels melted into the hills, and William entered a York that no longer resisted. The rebellion was, in effect, already over. What he did next was not about winning the war. From York, William's forces spread out across the countryside and began, methodically, to destroy it. They burned villages and the crops in the fields. They slaughtered the livestock. They destroyed the plows, the tools, the seed corn that the next harvest depended on. This was not the chaos of war. It was deliberate, systematic, and aimed not at armies, but at the means of life itself. It did not stop at Yorkshire. The destruction reached north toward the Tees and west across the Pennines as William drove his army through the winter mountains to Chester to crush the last resistance. By the spring of 1070, a great swathe of northern England had been stripped bare. What killed people was not the sword, it was what came after. With the food destroyed and the seed gone, the survivors faced a winter and a spring with nothing. Famine spread. Refugees fled south. Contemporary writers described the roads lined with the dead and the living selling themselves into slavery to eat. The Anglo-Norman monk Orderic Vitalis, writing decades later, and no enemy of the Normans, could not forgive it. He wrote that William, in his fury, punished the innocent with the guilty, and that more than 100,000 people perished. The figure is a chronicler's estimate, not a census, but even sober modern historians accept that the dead numbered in the tens of thousands. And we are not relying on outrage alone. 16 years later, when William's clerks compiled the Domesday Book, a survey of who owned what across England, they reached the north and wrote again and again a single word against its lands: waste. Whole districts of Yorkshire still recorded as worthless, more than a decade and a half after the fires went out. And here is the hard truth that makes the harrying so disturbing. It worked. The North never rose against William again. The resistance that 3 years of war had failed to break, a single winter of calculated devastation, ended for good. Onto the emptied land, William planted castles and loyal lords and bound the North to the crown by force. This is why the harrying of the North deserves to be remembered not as medieval excess, but as something colder, an act of state terror, planned and executed to a strategic end. Historians still argue over what to call it. Some now use the word genocide. Others resist it. What no one disputes is that a king deliberately destroyed his own people by the thousand, because it was the most effective way to rule them. The villages that burned in that winter were never all rebuilt. The names of the people who died were never written down. It is, almost literally, an unwritten history. If you want more of the stories England chose to forget, this is the channel for them.